Johansson. Welcome to the Executive Talk. You're almost notorious for your discretion, and you work in a business where you have to be discreet. You usually never talk about your clients. I take it that it won't be different this time. Or will you talk about specific clients in this interview?
Well, everything we do is confidential, so I never talk to the press, to the media about my clients. We can maybe go back in the history books a little bit, things that happened 20 years ago, but discretion, confidentiality, trust, that's my business.
As I said, that's really part of the business you're in, and that's almost ingrained in you, I guess. But something you can talk about, of course, is the character of your clients and the character of executives. And I think it's fair to say that there might not be a second person who knows executives like you do. You've almost placed 1,000 executives during your career in the executive search. By dealing with these people, do you have the impression that you understand executives and leaders better than other people do?
Well, I guess I've been around for almost 40 years in this business, and it's like with the Bordeaux, the older you get, the better you get. So I think I was blessed, with intuition for people. So I think that's a part of my DNA. I like people. If you want to be in this business, you have to love people, and I love people. And I have a curiosity. And for people in organizations, and I think that's the basis if you want to stay in this business, being successful, to be curious about people, curious about organization. That's what I'm doing.
When we talk about the business and about your job, maybe it's helpful to already start with this job description. I know you don't really like the name headhunter because it's got something almost a bit martialic about it. So how would you call yourself? Are you an executive searcher? Are you a board advisor? Are you sometimes even a friend to the people you work for?
On my business card it says global board advisor. That's what I do. I used to be, when I was the 13 years with the big American firms, I used to be a headhunter or executive search consultant, but I call myself global board advisor. That's what I do.
But is it true that you don't really like the name headhunter because it's got something?
That's okay. When people ask me, when I meet people for the first time and they ask me, what are you doing? I say, I make people happy. I'm in the business of making people happy, and nobody really understands that. But then, of course, when I explain to them what I do, but I make people happy.
And you make people happy for a long time already. You said it yourself. You're a very experienced advisor in that regard. When you look back at those 40 plus years or how long you are in the business, has the work changed? Or, if you look back at how you started and at all these people you've placed, has it in a way always been about people and about making people happy?
Well, the basis is the same as when I started early 1980. We have to match an organization with a person. So that is the same, to make that perfect match. But of course, between the early 80s and the 90s and today, there are major differences.
What's the biggest?
Well, first of all, when I started in this business, we most of what we did was middle management, sales managers, marketing directors, HR directors. And today, what I do is I look for, chairmen, non-executive board members, CEOs, and CFOs. That's basically what I do, those categories. So that's one thing. And the second thing, when I started in this business in the 80s, it was people worked in one country. So the French worked in France, the Swiss in Switzerland, the Americans in America. Today, we find a solution somewhere in the world, somewhere on any continent in the world. So it's become a global business. Thirdly, back then, we looked for men. Today, we look for a lot of women. That has changed as well. And of course, technology has revolutionized our business. Today, at a certain level where we work, everything is transparent. I can find out anything about any executive at a certain level anywhere in the world through the internet. And the books we had in the 80s, they were outdated before they came in the shelves, and the annual report was outdated, and it was different back then.
But having said that, has it become way more difficult, or does all the new tools that you have, the new possibilities that you have at the moment, does it make it simpler as well? That you can look all over the world.
It is not simpler. Let me tell you, it's really thin air up there. To find a new CEO, it's not easy, or a CFO or a new board member. It's not easy. People think it's easy. It's not. It's a lot of work because you got to. The person has to be free, has to be mobile, and he has to deliver. The expectations of the client and the expectation of the candidate has to be matched. So, no, it's not easy. And that's why we're well paid to find this needle in the haystack. And that's why I love it. I don't like the easy searches, I like the difficult searches, the challenging searches.
You need to have an immense network, and you need to know a lot of people. Is it fair to say that you have 100 or thousands of possible CEOs, CFOs, and board members on speed dial or in your phone book?
No, I feel myself I'm an artist. So every search I do, and believe me, we only do between 20, maximum 25 searches a year. We don't do a lot of work, but we're very focused and very specialized on what we do. No, of course, I know a lot of people. Network is very important, but the most important is the trust that I have built up over the years with people. So when I contact somebody, they know it's confidential, and they know they can trust me, and that's the basis for what I do. It's all about trust.
Isn't that a risk as well, being a relatively small company in that area and being a boutique, so to speak, that you have the trust of the people, you have to need the trust of the people. They're almost friends, I guess, in a way as well. Isn't that a risk of constantly disappointing someone if you can't place someone, or if you can't fill a space that you have to fill, that it's way more personal than if you worked for a bigger company, for a bigger firm?
Well, I don't see it that way, because, you have to be open up front when you meet somebody and say, listen, we only do 20, 25 searches maximum a year. So the probability that we will have something for you is very, very small. And so I don't feel that. And I think, when I contact somebody sitting in Los Angeles or sitting in Sydney or sitting in Singapore, Hong Kong, they are curious. How did you find me? I mean, and by the way, last year we placed 11 nationalities in 17 different countries on 3 continents. That's how we operate. We really work worldwide, and people are curious. How did you find me? And when they go on our webpage and they see what we've done and they see the track record that we have, they're curious. They want to meet with us, and they want to meet with me. And I create a lot of curiosity when people get the call.
Is that the main reason why you want to stay relatively small and the boutique? I mean, you could grow, you could become bigger. You've worked for bigger competitors as well. Has it always been in your mind when you started this company 25 years ago that I want to be very tailor-made, very specific, almost deliberately small and boutique?
Well, I started with 10 people, and we're still today 10 people.
There you go. Yeah.
So I know my limits. I'm not a good manager. As a matter of fact, my wife says, Bjørn, you're unemployable. I always had the dream to have my own firm, and that's what I realized. And I built a brand, and I built trust. And we work with 7 other countries in the world. We have affiliated people in Australia, in Brazil, in the US, and in Europe, in the UK, in France, and Germany. And we work together free of charge. I help you, you help me. We don't have no kickbacks if we give an assignment to the US or to Australia or to the UK. So we have all been with the big firms. And we all want to have our freedom and have our fun and be independent. And we all work at the top level, at the chairman level or the CEO level. So we share a lot in common. And so I'm not isolated. I'm not a one-person show or a 10-person show. We have a lot of contacts around the world that we work with.
When you speak to those contacts and to the other companies worldwide, I mean, Swiss business as it has developed or as it has changed as well. When you compare Switzerland and the business environment at the moment, does it still have the same reputation, for example? If you speak to someone in the US, also maybe if you're looking for clients, is Switzerland still attractive for people?
Switzerland is the most international, multicultural country in the world. Today, in the 30 largest corporations in Switzerland, more than 50% of the chairmen are non-Swiss, and more than 70% of the CEOs do not carry a Swiss passport. And there's no other country in the world where the top management team is so international that we have here in Switzerland. It's almost too international. I would like to see more Swiss coming into the top roles as we move forward in the next 5 years.
Are you pushing for that as well?
In a way I am, but it's also, my clients are asking for, where are the Swiss? Why do we always have to go to the US or Scandinavia or Germany to find the top executives? So yes, we are also looking for the Swiss. And I've also placed some very good Swiss that are making international careers. So I'm not neglecting the Swiss passport holders.
Of course, I won't be asking for any names. But if we stay on that topic, do you think one of the reasons might be that the Swiss are not hungry enough, or that they're not driven enough to become CEO, to become board members, that we're almost a little bit maybe too shy or too reluctant to play the bigger parts, that you have to go and find someone abroad?
Well, let's be honest, this is the best country to live in the world, and Zurich is the best city to live in the world. So why would you then go to somewhere else when you can have a good life here? So yes, we are less mobile than we used to be. But we also have a lot of opportunities here in Switzerland. We have extremely diverse industry with the pharmaceutical, healthcare companies, with the Nestles of this world, and the banks and the insurance companies. We are extremely diverse, and so it's easier for the Swiss to find something here in Switzerland than it would be, for example, for Austrians or Scandinavians to find something in their own home country. So we are in a way a little bit spoiled, and we have low taxes, we are well paid, we have the highest salaries in the world, we have the highest board fees in the world. Yes, in a way we are maybe a little bit too small.
Speaking of that, and speaking of mobility and maybe of Scandinavians, you come from Norway, and you ended up in Switzerland as a young man already, as a student. You came to St. Gallen. What made you come to Switzerland? Why did you decide you're going to be mobile, you're going to move to Switzerland?
Well, I knew when I was 15 years old that I was going to study at St. Gallen. I had two dreams or two fantasies. It was Southern California, Beach Boys, and all the pretty girls there. And the other one was St. Gallen. And I decided to go to St. Gallen, and I came here in September 1968 and had to make the Aufnahmeprüfung, the test to get inside. I passed that test, and I never looked back. Saying that, I spent 7 years abroad, 2 years in the US, 2 years in the UK.
So you had the American dream as well.
And I had the American dream, and I sat on the board of the largest search firm in the world with headquarters in Los Angeles for many years. So I spent a lot of time flying over to Southern California, and of course I go there also on vacations and have clients there. And one of my partners sits in LA as well. So,
however, you've been in Switzerland more than 50 years now. Do you consider yourself being more Swiss than Norwegian by now, or how would you? Where's the heart?
Where's the heart? I think my passport is only Norwegian, because the Norwegians don't accept two passports. Okay. So if you ask my wife, she would say I'm 50-50, 50% Swiss, 50% Norwegian. But honestly, I'm a global citizen. I'm a global kid. I feel at home anywhere in the world. So I don't feel. But when Switzerland plays Norway in football,
you're conflicted.
I'm conflicted. But when it comes to sports, cross country, for example, coming up now, the World Championship, I think I'm more for Norway than for Switzerland.
So,
but it's hard sometimes.
You have two hearts within you, and however, when you say you're almost a citizen of the world and you're an international character, I guess that helps in your business as well, because we talked about it. It's becoming more and more international. Do you feel that maybe in Switzerland, speaking about what we spoke about before, that maybe we're a little bit too narrow-minded sometimes, that we don't have that outer look and we don't have that kind of international spirit, that we look a little bit too much just within our little garden?
You know, at Harvard Business School, we have a standard answer. It depends. So there is no answer to that question. I think Switzerland, as I said earlier, is the most international country in the world. And look at all those companies we have. I mean, we have to be multicultural. We have to be international, and we are. So I don't think the Swiss are more introvert than others. I think the Swiss, they speak a lot of languages. They have different cultures here inside Switzerland. We are consensus oriented. And look at the country. The country is flourishing. And so I think the Swiss have a lot of really good values that are important in today's world. And highly respected outside. Swiss are highly respected in China, in Asia, but also in the rest of Europe. And people are maybe a little envious about the success we're having.
Let me ask you a question about you as an executive, as a boss. You said it, you started with 10 employees, you still have 10 employees. You're in a way an executive as well. Did working and looking for executives all your life teach you something about being a better boss, for example?
Well, you know, I give a lot of trust to my people, and they have, as we would say, a longer line. They can really a lot of freedom to operate. So, and I need to have people surrounding me that are self-starters. I'm not a good manager. I really am not. But I'm a good motivator, and I'm a visionary, and I could see where our business was going. That's when I started this company, early 1993. I knew I was only going to work at the top. I knew that I was going to work 1/3 non-executive board members, 1/3 CEOs, and 1/3 members of the executive board. That's the vision I had, and I realized that vision. So I knew exactly where I wanted to go. And I'm proud of what I've built up and what the brand stands for today. So, you know, I could have open offices somewhere else in the world. I could have expanded these offices here. I moved into these offices 26 years ago, more or less on the date. And I have the lease here for another 10 years, so I can stay here, I think, until the end of 2028. So, you know, I don't want to be bigger. I want to stay small, focused, and be that little artist that I am in this global world, just finding that needle in the haystack. That's what I love to do. That's what I'm good at.
I mean, we can really tell it's a passion that drives you, and you really love your job. And when I hear that you have that lease for another 10 years, if you work for another 10 years, and if you allow me saying so, then you're over 80 years old. Yeah. Do you ever consider not working or just quitting because you love your job so much?
No, I you know, a lot of my friends and clients are over 80. And they're still extremely busy and happy and motivated and work very hard. I don't think really, I have my freedom and I have my fun. And as long as my health is good, I will always strive for the freedom and the fun. And as I said, the older you get, the better you get because you gain experience. And I wake up every morning and I love to go to work. And I know for sure it's going to stay that way.
Is it also because you work in a field, in an area where I could imagine it's always going to be important, if not more important, that all these personal relationships with the executive search business, they become more and more important. That even with digitization and the globalization and in a way the modern technologies, at the heart, it's always going to be a one-to-one talk, always going to be a one-to-one decision. And people like you are more and more needed in a way, no?
I think so, and I think it's getting more and more complicated because of the transparency and because, in the past you could hide, before the internet came up. Today, everything is transparent. And I think the demand on a CEO is much, much bigger than it was 10 or 20 years ago. And the same on the chairman. And to be a CEO is not the same as being the regional head or the division head. It's a different world, and to be the chairman for the first time is different from being the CEO. And as I've gained a lot of experience dealing with these people, you also become an advisor, like a mentor to a lot of these people that you place and that you're dealing with. So, and I enjoy that people listen to you, people take your advice. So, as I said, I'm a global board advisor, and as long as people are willing to listen to me, I'm having fun. And I've also, and I think I've been good at that, having contact with the newer generations. I've always had a curiosity for the younger people at universities, and those who are, 35 or 45, even if I'm 72 in October this year. I don't feel 72, and some people say I don't look 72. And I'm having fun, as I said, every day.
Funny enough, you once said in an interview that if you hadn't become a headhunter or an executive search professional, you would have liked to become a professor at university and teach young people. Is that also a sign of or kind of one of your hobbies, so to speak, that you always try to keep in touch with younger generations?
Well, that's a good point. I wrote my doctoral thesis on creativity and marketing.
Right?
It was the first book on the topic of creativity and business in the world. I spent 2 years in the US for that book and for my thesis, and I enjoyed teaching, and I really had the vision back then to become a professor for innovation, for creativity, for problem solving, and maybe related to business and marketing. It turned out to be different, and a good friend of mine, he wrote a book in the early 70s in the US, Dr. David Campbell. He wrote a book, if you don't know where you're going, you will probably end up somewhere else. And that happened to me. I ended up somewhere else, but I knew where I was going. But I can combine what I wanted to do, teaching, being with younger people in my job, and so I'm a lucky person.
When you look back at that lucky career as well, and a career full of success, and we said it, almost 1,000 executives placed. When you look back at all these 1,000, are there a lot of failures as well, or would you say that almost all of them made great careers, had great success, or are there the one or the other where you would say maybe he wasn't supposed to be CEO or chairman?
Well, you have to ask my placements and my clients. They are the best people to make that judgment. But if I look back now, I think I did more mistakes in the 80s and early 90s than I've done in the last 10, 15, 20 years. So I think, I don't do many flops. And when I think back over the last 20 years, there hasn't been any really flops. There have been some surprises back in the 80s. But I've learned from those. But I'm pretty happy and proud of my track record.
And when you look forward, last question, as we said, you're not about to stop any day soon, and you still want to work. Do you think that the business will change dramatically still, or is it still, with all the changes that are coming, do you see a different kind of approach maybe in the next 10 years, 20 years to come? Or as we said before, is it still going to be, in a way, quite the simple structure and the simple question of finding the right person for the right job at the right moment?
Well, I think so, to be quite honest. I think at the level, I have 4 clients. I have the owner of the company, the chairman of nomination committee, and the CEO. Basically, those are the 4 clients that I'm dealing with. And I think the needs that they have will stay the same. At the middle management level and the lower management level, I think internet and new, online systems will build up. But at the top level, the human factor, shaking the hand of a person, looking the person in the eyes, and really feeling that person out, if he or she can deliver the expectations and succeed and be better than the expectations. I think that will stay on. I don't think that will change if we meet 10 or 20 or 30 years from now.
So it's still about finding the needle in the haystack, as you say, or finding the right package. And that will be my final question. And I know it's a difficult one, and you said you're not going to talk about names, and it doesn't have to be someone you placed. But if I asked you, is there a CEO or chairman or someone from the business environment where you would say, he's got the right package. He's really probably the best CEO I've ever met or I would ever meet in my life, or a woman as well.
Well, I think the number one person we have in Switzerland today with the Swiss passport is Peter Walser. He's the chairman of ABB. He's on the board of Roche. He's on the board of IBM. He sits on other boards.
As well, yes.
Former CEO of Shell, CFO Rootop, humble person, down to earth. Didn't study at St. Gallen, didn't study at Harvard, but made it to the top. Highly, highly respected. I think he's the number one person we have in Switzerland today with the Swiss passport. Another person I do admire, who has done a lot for the world and for Switzerland, is Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum. I think he's somebody that has done so much for the world and for this country, and he's doing every year, among others, at the annual meeting in Davos. I think he has made a difference to this country and to the world.
There you go. We heard two names. Thank you so much. Thank you for that discussion, Bjørn Johansson. Thank you.
Thank you.